Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. I got a classic double oak bourbon banger on the bar. Let's get into it. So on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is Woodford Reserve Double Oak Single Barrel. So I've been meaning to pick up a bottle of Woodford Double Oak for a while. I did say this is a single barrel store pick, but I'm kind of intending this review to really be a general Woodford Reserve Double Oak review. It's just that when I went to go pick up the bottle, I saw they had a store pick for like 57 bucks, which is a great deal for a Woodford Double Oak pick, so couldn't resist it. I think at some point I'll probably grab a regular one anyway to do a maybe a store pick versus the regular one versus the Woodford Double Oak. So maybe look out for that video in the future. I have heard from reliable sources, Brian and Marianne over at Bourbon School, that the Woodford Reserve Double Oak picks are outstanding. As you can see by the bottle here, I have drank some of this, and it's great, spoiler alert, but I think that it's close enough from what I remember to the original Woodford Double Oak that I can just get a general review off of this one. So kind of, take this as a Woodford Reserve Double Oak review and don't really worry so much about the single barrel part. Anyway, getting into the whiskey here, Woodford Double Oak is one that I haven't had on the bar in a very long time. I've had it before. Obviously, I've had some of this one and really liked it. It's just one of those ones where, with this channel, sometimes you tend to kind of put some of these classic ones that you like from a long time ago but haven't had in a while aside for, trying to try something new that you've never had before. And that is kind of one of the things about having a channel is, sometimes that affects the way you purchase your bourbon. But I decided to finally pick one up because I figure I was long overdue. And it's just, it really is a great bourbon. On the nose, this thing is so sweet and desserty. It just kind of has a little bit of everything in the sweetness department. But really, really rich and dark. So every flavor that it has, it's got a rich and dark brown sugar. It's got a rich and dark caramel to it. Little bit of marshmallow maybe on this one. And then it does have, being a double oak, it's not just an extra oaky bourbon. It really does have a whole different level of flavors to it that, I think they all just come together and make something really nice. But on the nose, it's outstanding. I do get one kind of interesting, sort of weird, non-traditional note on the nose that I will get to later on. But let's get into the palate, see what happens. Cheers. Yeah, that's excellent. It almost makes me feel a little bit upset that I've gone so long without having one of these on the bar. That just really is a good bourbon. 90.4 proof, I believe. Yep, 90.4. It's interesting, I feel like this one, I've never done a standalone review of it. Greg and I never did a standalone review of it, but we did do a comparison between this and what I consider to be its counterpart in the whiskey world, which is Old Forester 1910. And the reason I say that is because I feel like those two in particular really kind of have the same sort of general flavor profile that I think is different from other double oak products. Like if you've had a double oak from any other brand besides those two, there's a lot of good ones out there, but I don't think it's going to be a representation of what you might get from this. So on the palate, it really, everything from the nose kind of transferred to the palate. It's just dessert in a glass for me. But I said that, being double oak, it's not just about getting more oak on it, but it's just, I feel like the oak manifests itself in a different way on this one. There is a little bit of an astringency to it, but I feel like with all those really rich, sweet notes, the oak is just kind of holding it up, I guess, a little bit, if that makes any sense. There's a little bit of spice throughout it. But I really think on this one, it's the sweetness that kind of steals the show. Let's go in for the second sip here. Yeah, really on that second sip, that marshmallow note came through. There's also something about this, it's like, it's bright at the same time as it is dark. Like all the flavors are really, really dark, but there is a kind of like a brightness to it as well, which is kind of hard to explain. I would imagine most people watching this have had Woodford Double Oak before. And so I know I'm not, breaking new ground by talking about this, this whiskey that most of you have probably had. So I would love to hear your feedback on it. But, like I said, I wanted to get one on the shelf. It's been a while, and I'll be damned if I'm buying a bottle and not getting content out of it. So, we're going to talk about it. But I think it's worth talking about because on the off chance that you haven't tried this, I think it usually runs in the, I want to say $50, $55 if it's fairly priced. Around here, you can get them at like Costco and Sam's Club for $42, which is a steal for this. But yeah, I think it's worth every penny. It's definitely, it's not a whiskey I would give to someone if I wanted to show them, hey, here's what bourbon tastes like, because it's outside of the standard bourbon profile enough that I think it's kind of its own thing. And to come full circle with mentioning the Old Forester 1910, both being Brown-Forman products, I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I've always thought that the Woodford products and the Old Forester products kind of both are in the same lane of kind of like a unique flavor profile. Even their base, kind of models, not just their double oak ones. They both have a similar kind of, maybe a little bit of that banana note that some of the Brown-Forman stuff is known for. Definitely like a molasses note. I don't know if I mentioned that before on the nose and on the palate, but the molasses, like the dark molasses, is really, really prominent on this. And I get that a lot in Old Forester products too. And so I would say if you've had this but never had the 1910, give that a shot. If you had the 1910, you liked it, give this a shot, because again, they kind of are in their own lane together aside from other double oak products that I've had. So yeah, really, really good on this. It makes me think of the Old Forester, the Woodford Reserve Double Oak. I reviewed that off of a sample a couple months ago when that was a little bit more of a hot topic in the whiskey tubes. And just going off of memory, I think this holds up just fine to the Double Oak. So I definitely, now that I've had a couple sips of this and I've had a couple of pours before, filming this review, I'm definitely going to do that comparison, but I feel like if I'm going to do that, I should do one with the original version of this as well. So I'm not going to bust out the limited sample that I have of the Double Oak for this particular video, but yeah, I've convinced myself to buy a regular bottle of just the standard Woodford Double Oak. Honestly, because I'm liking this much, I don't think this bottle is going to last very long, and I think I want to just keep this on the shelf. Either this or the 1910. So anyway, let's go in for the final sip before we get out of here. Notice a really nice cherry note on the back end of that last sip. Almost like a cherry popsicle or a cherry, the Mr. Freezy Pops or whatever. Kind of on the back side of that. So that, kind of makes it a full circle sort of like spectrum of flavors. You get your really dark sweetness, the molasses, the brown sugar, the caramel. You've got the oak spice kind of underneath it, and then you've got, that cherry note on the back end of it. This thing is just, I guess the word that comes to mind is decadent. It's just not a word I really use in my normal life, but I've heard people talk about that with bourbons when they're really super sweet and desserty and just indulgent, and this one certainly is that. I think the proof is fine on it, but I do wonder what maybe 100 proof or a cask strength version of this would be, because I don't know that they've had that in any of the Woodford special releases. I think the Double Oak was still 90.4, but anyway, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe there's a reason Woodford hasn't done that. Maybe that just is a little bit too much. But as a standalone at the 90.4, total recommend on this. I'm absolutely loving having this bottle on my shelf. Again, it's just been so long since I've had one, and with the couple of pours that I had leading up to this, I really, really thoroughly enjoyed them. And honestly, I wanted to get this review out of the way before I was reviewing a mostly empty bottle. So I said at the beginning that there is kind of an interesting, weird flavor note that I get, which I don't mean weird in a bad way that it's bad on the whiskey. It's just, it's not really a flavor note that I've ever heard anybody use to describe any sort of whiskey at all. But even back when I first had this, I was sipping on it, I was like, God, this is just reminding me of something, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then finally it dawned on me, and I'm getting it this time too. It's subtle, but it's there for me. Worcestershire. Like I know there's some debate on how to pronounce that. I think it's Worcestershire, because like that's how they pronounce Worcester, Massachusetts, and then Shire. So, or some people say Worcestershire, or some people just say Worcestershire or whatever. Yeah, that stuff that you put like on meat or in some, ground beef for burgers. I realize that that's kind of a weird tasting note for bourbon, but to be honest, at this point, after doing this for a while and after seeing so many reviews of different bourbons, I don't really discount anything as a tasting note or a nosing note, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it tastes like you're consuming that specific product. It just means that there's similarities in them. Like, furniture varnish is not an uncommon note to get off of bourbon. I hear people talk about that. And I remember when I first started drinking bourbon, there were certain ones that reminded me of that, but I was like, nah, furniture varnish, that would be just too weird. That's, and so I would never bring that up. But with this one, the Worcestershire, what I'm getting off of it is like the sweetness and the astringency of it. And I went and looked at the bottle that I have, and I looked at the ingredients, the first two ingredients, vinegar and molasses. And so with Worcestershire, there is definitely like a sweet note to it, but then there's that kind of astringent vinegar note, which I don't think is necessarily out of place on a double oak bourbon. So anyway, I may be the first person to ever use that tasting note on a bourbon. I don't know. I've never heard anybody else use that. So maybe I'll have to start Club Worcestershire like Fred Minnick started Club Marzipan after throwing that tasting note out. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me know, folks, if you've got a bottle of this on the shelf, nose it a little bit, pay attention to it, and then if you've got a bottle of Worcestershire sauce in your fridge, go just lightly nose that as well. And it's especially on the nose, not necessarily on the taste, although there is a little bit of crossover there, but it's mainly on the nose. But let me know if you get that, and don't hit me up in the comments telling me I'm nuts until you've tried it. If you've tried it and you still think I'm nuts, fair game. But anyway, yeah, let me know, folks, in the comments. What do you think of this one? What do you think of the single barrels versus just the standard release? Yeah, and let me know if this is one that you just keep on the shelf regularly, because I think I'm going to start doing that. So this has been Woodford Reserve Double Oak Single Barrel Total Wine Pick. On the Bourbon Note, I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next one.